All right, waiting on thumbs from the back row. Okay, looking pretty good. Well, thank you all for being here this morning. I want to start by thanking our Office of Homeless Services and key partners like Nashville General Hospital, who this year are newly providing on-site health care, because tonight they will open our winter overflow shelter for the 10th consecutive night. Our shelter providers at Room in the Inn, Nashville Rescue Mission, Oasis Center, Safe Haven, Launchpad, and others will again provide a safe, warm place to stay overnight for hundreds of people without homes in Nashville. Tonight, too, our partners at the Mary Parish Center will give survivors of domestic violence a safe place to stay away from a life-threatening home life. We work daily with a network of more than 110 community partners who are all trying to create a housing crisis resolution system that works for families, people with children, people with serious physical, mental, and behavioral health needs, seniors, and veterans. It's important, often life-saving, life-changing work, and for decades we've done it in partnership with our federal government. Unfortunately, that has recently changed. Unprecedented, cruel, and unlawful changes to federal funding by the Trump-Vance administration are ripping up a nationwide network of stable anti-homelessness programs midstream. The administration is destabilizing local systems, breaking commitments communities rely on, and undermining Congress's plan for how these funds should be used. In the midst of winter, new plans released by HUD will push nearly 1,000 currently housed Nashvillians back into homelessness or unsafe home life, so we are taking them to court to stop it. On Monday, we joined several cities and nonprofit organizations to file a lawsuit to stop unlawful changes that will not only push more people onto the streets, but will also strain shelters, hospitals, and jails, and once again ensure the fallout impacts local residents and local budgets. Dating back to President George W. Bush, the near nationwide consensus has been that a housing-first model, like the one we've adopted in Nashville, is the best way to help people experiencing housing crisis. The new rules will decimate permanent supportive housing and the continuum of care program as we know it. The damage would be immediate and, in some cases, irreversible. Much of the housing crisis resolution system in Nashville could be wiped out overnight. Beyond the cruelty of the abrupt departure from proven solutions, the changes violate federal law by rewriting Congress's program, which agencies are not allowed to do unilaterally. Congress decides how the funds can be used and has repeatedly directed HUD to prioritize housing stability. While we can debate the values underlying this federal action, we're certain the action is unlawful, and I'd like to ask our Director of Law, Wally Dietz, to share more on the suit. Wally?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor just said, this new unexpected action from the federal government is contrary to law, chaotic, and cruel. The law that was passed 2 years ago provided for a 2-year funding cycle so that grantees, including the two nonprofits represented here today, could rely on a 2-year funding commitment. And the law required the Department of Housing and Urban Development, if they wanted to make any tweaks to the law, they weren't supposed to do anything substantive, but if they wanted to make any tweaks to the law, they had to do that by a deadline of June 15th this year. They missed that deadline by 5 months. And that delay is critical, because if they had taken some action in June, we would have had more advance notice. We are now on the verge of our funding cycle for grantees starting in January. Next month, some of the money starts running out, and the rest of it runs out over phases over the rest of the year. So we are saying that one of our legal grounds is it's too late. They cannot do this. The statute said they had a deadline. They missed it by 5 months. But we also have other serious legal claims that the new policy is contrary to law. And one of those is that the law said that permanent supportive housing is the best policy and should be a priority for HUD. That's the law. HUD has said, no, we're going to allocate only 30% of prior funding for permanent supportive housing, and we're going to emphasize these other programs. Well, that's contrary to law. And so, and also, under the Administrative Procedure Act, there was no notice and comment period. No one had a chance to say, hey, this is, you're going to create a disaster. No one had a chance to say that. This new policy is the definition of arbitrary and capricious. We have multiple legal grounds. We are asking for an emergency injunction. We're hoping to have a hearing next week, and this afternoon at 2:30 Eastern Time, the court in Rhode Island is having a scheduling conference. We hope to have a briefing schedule and a hearing date before the end of the day, and we'll update everybody about that news.
Thank you, Eli. And I want to thank the Department of Law because we have now repeatedly sued the administration over unlawful and unconstitutional actions. This represents the fourth such local action we've taken. They've worked overtime with grace and expertise to serve and protect Nashville and Nashvillians. So, Wally, thank you. By slashing federal funding authorized and prioritized by Congress for housing stability by more than 60%, almost 1,000 Nashvillians face the possibility of being evicted, hundreds potentially in the middle of winter. As we've seen across DOGE, the impact of the mega bill and the shutdown and its impact on SNAP, the pressures on local governments and philanthropy cannot make up the gap of a retreating federal partner. I want to introduce two guests who are deeply impacted by this. Mary Catherine Rand is the executive director at the Mary Parrish Center, one of the organizations we're suing to protect. They serve survivors of domestic violence, and for their clients, this is a life or death situation. 100% of the Nashvillians they serve believe their abuser is capable of killing them. This rule change would force many of these survivors into an impossible choice: unsheltered homelessness or returning to an abuser. Mary Catherine, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My name is Mary Catherine Rand, and I'm the Executive Director at the Mary Parrish Center. First, I want to thank Mayor O'Connell for inviting me here today and to offer my sincere thanks to Director of Law Wally Dietz and his entire team for working closely with us on our declaration and for ensuring that survivor voices were included in this case. Survivors of interpersonal violence and the organizations that support them are often overlooked in housing policy. And we are grateful that Metro sees the value of survivor voices and understands the devastating impact that this year's HUD funding changes would have on their lives. For more than 20 years, the Mary Parrish Center has served survivors of interpersonal violence. And since our founding, we've supported over 17,000 survivors in Middle Tennessee with safe housing and trauma-informed services. Last year alone, through our domestic violence coordinated entry system, 1,589 survivors and their children reached out for help. That represents 719 households actively seeking safety, and 194 were able to move into housing. These numbers don't reflect failure. They reflect a community working every day to house survivors in a system that's already operating at its limits. What this new policy does is not fix the strain. It makes it worse. And here's why. The FY25 federal competition now rewards programs for requiring participation in services and penalizes organizations like ours that are legally prohibited from doing that. Under federal law, including the Violence Against Women Act and the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, survivor services must be voluntary and confidential. Choice is not optional for survivors, it's protection. Forcing treatment in exchange for housing would replicate the same power and control dynamics survivors are trying to escape. And yet, under HUD's current scoring system, programs receive a major advantage simply for mandating services, even though survivor programs are legally barred from doing so. That means Nashville could lose housing programs not because they failed, but because they followed the law. Right now, there are about 334 households on Nashville's domestic violence coordinated entry by name list, 684 adults and children seeking safety. Without our programs, many will be left with two options: return to an abusive household or sleep outside. And not because they refused help, but because the system denied it. And we need to be clear about who this affects. Among the 246 survivors and children that we housed last year, all had experienced stalking. More than 8 out of 10 had been strangled, and every single one believed their abuser was capable of killing them. This is who is at risk. Metro's decision to take legal action matters because what is happening here is bigger than one program or one city. It's about whether federal policy protects the people at greatest risk or abandons them through technicalities. This lawsuit says something important, that Nashville will not quietly accept policies that put survivors in harm's way, that we will not allow federal systems to penalize programs for obeying the law, and that survivors deserve housing that is safe, dignified, and rooted in choice. On behalf of survivors and the organizations that serve them, thank you for being here today and for being part of this conversation.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. And I want to introduce next Grant Winter, the Chief Program Officer at Safe Haven, a partner that's been working for 37 years to end family homelessness with proactive programs and compassionate care. If these new guidelines are allowed to stand, they will be the first organization to see their grant funding impacted. Grant, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Grant Winter, and I'm the Chief Program Officer at Safe Haven Family Shelter. Safe Haven is honored to join the Mary Parish Center, Mayor O'Connell, and the City of Nashville in advocating on behalf of families in our community. Safe Haven Family Shelter serves 250 to 300 families experiencing homelessness per year, with a 91% proven retention rate for stable housing in the permanent locations that we place families. These families are made up of moms, dads, grandparents, and about 650 Nashville children. Our organization is the first in Nashville slated to lose funding from HUD, and the impact for our community will be immediate. Without renewal of the HUD Rapid Rehousing Grant of $361,000 on January 31st, 41 families, including 151 children and adults, could lose their housing. On top of that, our nearly $1 million domestic violence bonus grant serving families fleeing domestic violence is also on the chopping block. If this funding is lost, another 110 families consisting of 375 people, including 246 children, would likely lose housing and may be forced back into unsafe relationships. Without renewed HUD funding, Safe Haven cannot continue serving the more than 201 families per year who depend on these programs for continued housing, supportive services, and pathways to stability and growth. These families, including nearly 300 children, will be at risk of losing housing and access to critical resources. Returns to homelessness are traumatic for families, especially the children, who show increased rates of depression, anxiety, and negative impacts on school attendance and performance. HUD previously assured funding would carry from FY 2024 to FY 2025 for stability. This reverse course will force Safe Haven to completely retool its program model and find additional funding sources with minimal transition time in an extremely difficult fundraising market. These drastic changes came without provider input, adequate transition time or support, threatening to destabilize programs helping those who are most vulnerable. Not only will this put the families currently being served at risk, but will also create a bottleneck for the quickly growing number of families becoming homeless, adding to over 400 families currently awaiting housing on our community's by name list and coordinated entry. The stakes are incredibly high, and we, alongside our other local funded partners in the city, will continue to fight to ensure that every family in our city has a safe place to call home. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here.
Great. Thank you, Mary Catherine. Thank you both for the work that you and your organizations do for vulnerable Nashvillians. Over the last 3 years, we've worked together to house thousands, and we've reduced the mortality rate of our unhoused population. We have no intention of going back. We continue to see a reduction in crime across Nashville and Davidson County. Overall crime is the lowest in 5 years. Our homicide rate is the lowest in over a decade, and robbery and burglary are the lowest in 15 years. As I've said many times, this is only possible because of the significant work of our Metro Nashville Police Department in partnership with our community, including our neighborhood organizations. The Nashville Downtown Partnership has been awarded a $15 million grant from the state to partner with Metro to upgrade and replace aging safety systems and equipment, tools to detect vehicle noise and stop street racing in our neighborhood with the most pedestrian activity, improve connectivity between our first responders in an emergency and during large events, and add public restrooms, better lighting, and more community outreach in downtown. The grant was available to Tennessee's 4 largest cities and their respective downtown business improvement districts. With Nashville's successful application for this public safety grant, we're presenting a memorandum of understanding to the Metro Council that will limit the use of these funds to priorities jointly established by our office, the partnership, MNPD, and NDOT, with the understanding that the Metro Code calls for any future use of grant proceeds to be subject to separate Metro Council approval. So just to be clear, the MOU we're presenting limits the use of these funds. Most of the money will return directly from the NDP to Metro, with the Metro Council approving it when it does. Public safety is a foundational responsibility of government. I'm committed to doing all we can to keep Nashvillians safe, and there's no question this $15 million helps us in that regard, and does so at no cost to Nashville taxpayers and within our existing rules and laws. Violent crime, property crime, and total crime all remain down year to date, but we know we have more work to do, and it's important that we take every opportunity to say to Nashvillians, we care about your safety, and we're working every day to make sure you're safe at home, in your neighborhood, or out enjoying the city. We're excited about partnering with TPAC, our Tennessee Performing Arts Center, and the state to develop a new home for this significant cultural institution on Nashville's East Bank. The Metro Council approved the deal on first reading last night. It was also presented to the community during a Section 230 meeting yesterday afternoon and to the East Bank Development Authority earlier this week. The agreement we've negotiated ensures Nashville will have a world-class performance space to bring live theater and other premier events to Nashville. There will be opportunities for public access for educational and community purposes. Final approval of the deal will mean that one more key element of the central waterfront will be under construction soon and serve Nashvillians for generations. And of course, we will also enjoy a festive weekend here in Nashville, starting with the lighting of the big Metro Norway spruce Christmas tree right outside in Public Square Park this evening. Hope some of you will join us at 6 p.m. for that. 2 school choirs, a bunch of mascots, and a WNBA star with roots here will join us this year to once again bring joy to the season. On Saturday, I'll be in Bellevue at the Holidays in the View Parade in the morning, and then the 40th Donaldson Hermitage Christmas Parade in the evening. And I think we've entered the time of year where it is uncontroversial to be playing Christmas music. With that, happy to take questions.
I'll talk about the first one. Maybe some clarification on the grant for the funding for the individual entities. I think you said when you were talking, the grant was for 2 years, that they passed 2 years ago. So when would that 2 years be up? Is it fiscal year? Does it go out like in the middle of 26, or when does that grant run out?
I'll let Wally or either of the organizations talk about this, but historically through the continuum of care, we have a competitive process for HUD funding, and what Wally was referencing was a 2-year funding cycle created for the past fiscal year, and I don't know if you want to speak to it more, Wally.
Thank you. It's a good question. The funding cycle was scheduled to give us the same amount of money through September 30th of next year. So we had grants that were committing money through September 30th of 2026. And that's now all been pulled back. And as I said, they missed the deadline to do that. And so starting with Safe Haven, these nonprofits are going to start losing money next month that they fully intended to rely on and had every belief that they should rely on. Let me say just one more thing. I want to thank these 2 nonprofits so much for their work with us. Our lawyers, John Whitaker and Abby Greer, worked with the Public Rights Project lawyers literally around the clock to get this lawsuit ready. We have made a powerful case about irreparable harm, which is one of the elements we have to prove thanks to the declarations from these 2. So we're very appreciative.
Mary Catherine Grant, did you want to add anything?
Who applied for the grant, the $15 million? Is Downtown Nashville Partnership the official applicant?
Technically, yes. There was a very tight application time frame under money awarded in the governor's budget this year for cities to apply. It was, again, available to the 4 largest cities, and you had to basically have a joint agreement between the city and that downtown organization. And so to meet the time frame for availability of the funds, they were the lead applicant. We had a letter of agreement and now proposing a memorandum of understanding.
I know there was 2 softwares mentioned, LeoSite and FiveCast. At least one of them, FiveCast, has been accusing some federal overreach from Border Patrol and ICE using it to find immigrants. Is there a concern that if that were to come here, that would also happen in Metro?
I think so. One, this is really, most of what's happening here is upgrades and replacement of equipment, community safety center. I would defer to the Metro Nashville Police Department on that, or to the Department of Law. We're not trying to establish new overreach agreements here. Absent council oversight, and any of that funding will come back directly to the Metro Council for further discussion.
Mayor, it's almost the end of the year. Can you kind of name just some of the accomplishments that you feel like your administration has done in 2025 and your goal for 2026?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things we've done is have 1 year of progress since voters approved Choose How You Move. We are now, thanks to that program, at work on more than 100 traffic signal upgrades across Davidson County. Next week, we'll be celebrating a prototype of what that's going to look like along Lebanon Pike, with that corridor almost fully upgraded and ready to start collecting data. And eventually the goal here is to provide everyone across the city with more green lights. We've got the first round of the upgrades to our transit service out there in the world already. We had a significant expansion in service over the summer, and we've also rolled out a first of its kind in Nashville access to vulnerable Nashvillians called Journey Pass that arrived just as the shutdown was putting additional pressure on SNAP recipients locally. And we've now had thousands of signups for that program. We've got more than $10 million of public benefit allocated out into the community to offer fare-free transit access. And meanwhile, we've expanded WeGo Ride participation to organizations like Amazon and the Predators that are using it organizationally as an employee benefit. So Choose How You Move is a huge category. I think the TPAC agreement is a big deal. That was more than a year of very deep and difficult negotiation with that organization, knowing that they had significant funding, that they have a significant philanthropic requirement under the terms of their state agreement. So getting to site certainty for them will mean a lot. You've probably seen not only year one of investment in the unified housing strategy, but a full year of either groundbreakings or, better yet, ribbon cuttings on long-term affordable housing projects across the city, multiple different parts of the city, bringing hundreds, and actually probably over the course of the year, thousands of new homes online, using a variety of tools, and then making that year one investment so we can continue that trend. So I think for the biggest needs of Nashvillians, where the costs are the greatest, housing and transportation, we've taken huge strides. For cultural institutions that are a big part of how we retain our identity as Music City, too, being able to invest in all of those things to make this an ongoing, as affordable city to live in that has great quality of life, which have been our 2 priorities from the outset. Looking forward, we're excited to see things actually get under construction on the East Bank. So beyond the stadium, you'll see TPAC, you'll see the Fallon Company delivering the first residential project, probably also at least one hospitality project. But I think it'll be nice for Nashvillians to see that there is more than a stadium under construction on the East Bank. We just cut the ribbon on the third of a trio of elementary schools, but we're looking forward to getting started on the next round of investments there. We've got some new things happening as we improve our waste services now that that's a standalone department in its first year. So we've seen performance improvements in Hub Nashville, which we continue to encourage Nashvillians to use. So looking forward to all of those things that are in our community improvement program of schools, safety, and services. Stephen, I know you had a question.
Can you detail what changed from the original TPAC agreement to the latest one?
Yeah, you probably heard then Chief Development Officer Bob Mendez describe it. This was non-binding work done at the same time we presented the Master Development Agreement for the Fallon Company, and it did anticipate that there might be a contribution from TPAC to a specific segment of the John Siegenthaler pedestrian bridge. We are now more likely to be working with other partners and Metro looking at a design there that keeps that intact. But that funding commitment is probably the biggest piece of the agreement change. We also did secure a long-term revenue guarantee from TPAC back to Metro that will be $400,000 a year for 15 years. We also worked with Fallon to give them some access to lay down for construction and to do some schedule alignment. So you'll see all of those things as the deal progresses through Metro Council. Yeah, Araceli.
Yesterday, Sergeant Carlos Lara put out a statement after there were some rumors that police was working with ICE. Given this MOU, community activists have raised concerns about potential surveillance and ICE getting a hold of some video. Wondering if you've had conversations with Metro about maybe people being scared to report crime now. Many Latino community members say they're scared this holiday season to even leave their home and plan on kind of celebrating very intimately.
Yeah, and Araceli, thank you. Going back to when ICE was here very intensely working specifically with state police, we demonstrated repeatedly, and not only Chief Drake, but I think Wally as well in the Department of Law, that this was a state-led and federal-led activity. This was not something that was either led by or coordinated with our local police. Similarly here, we already have a network of downtown cameras that are already in place. We are generally looking to upgrade those, allow multiple first responders, special event response. This is not in any way intended to be about immigration-related activity. And Wally, I don't know if you want to speak to sort of where we've been from Know Your Rights campaigns or the facts that from executive order to the things we're doing in partnership with schools and police, that we are trying to keep the city as safe as possible for all of our residents.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me say that Metro Police has worked with federal agents for years on criminals, people who are violating the law, and Metro Police have worked hand in glove with them. There is no change to that. There's a lot of confusion about whether Metro Police is involved in enforcement activity. The answer is no. The federal government put out a very misleading announcement last month that there was this new task force formed and that Metro was part of it. That's simply not true. It is a federal agency task force. Local governments are not even invited to be part of that task force. So we are not a part of that task force. Do we help enforce the law with criminals? Yes. Are we involved in immigration enforcement? No. And we have done a lot to educate our citizens about their rights. We have worked diligently to make it clear that we are not interested in having our police co-opted into a federal government enforcement campaign, and it's very frustrating, frankly.
Wally, would you mind commenting? In fact, Araceli, one of our lawsuits was about that condition.
Yes. Yes, we filed a lawsuit together with about 80 local governments in Seattle. It's the King County lawsuit. One of the conditions of grants, and we've looked for this, and we have lawyers every day looking for grants that require our police to cooperate with ICE. We will not enter into a 287G agreement with ICE, with DHS. And in that lawsuit, we were successful in getting an injunction so that the federal government could not hold out funds and make us promise to cooperate with ICE as a condition of getting the funds. That was found by the court to be unlawful. So thank you, Mayor. We have won that lawsuit already.
And so, Araceli, my hope would be that we're going to be doing everything in our power to make sure that people know that they can continue to send children to school, to continue to report actual crimes as they're occurring on the ground. And if anything changes, we will work diligently to make sure that people understand changes in law or what we're seeing in federal activity. Thanks.
Time for one more. And I know a big part of your focus has been getting more affordable housing throughout the city. I know the zoning bills passed last night. Do you think that's going to help with that? And what are your thoughts on some of the community reactions to that?
Yeah, we'll see. I think our administration is focused almost exclusively on the unified housing strategy. We do know that the Metro Council requested from the Planning Department Housing Division this housing and infrastructure study. We followed the Metro Planning Department's response to that with some of these zoning bills. I do think that it's important to hear some of the community concerns, but I think similarly, I live in an urban neighborhood. I know that context change from the heart of the city out to the county line, and that there are 526 square miles of land. I don't think Nashvillians are going to have a lot of difficulty looking for opportunities to welcome new neighbors in ways that are not particularly disruptive. We have a handful of what are known as DADUs, detached accessory dwelling units, in our neighborhood. And I think what you've seen over time, and I spent 8 years on the Metro Council working on this issue, is that a policy change that may itself happen overnight does not lead to sweeping changes in the community, but may in fact have the intended effect of trying to offer some housing affordability where it matters. We know that, I've had several friends over just even the past few years that have really benefited from being able to have an accessory dwelling unit for parents, for grandparents who are trying to live with their family, keep the family close, or otherwise want to have students coming to Nashville, enjoying our colleges and universities, that they can offer a reasonably affordable pathway to taking advantage of their property. It's a good way to supplement income, and so I think the approach, what I saw from the discussion, is the Metro Council found a good balanced approach to respond to one piece of the housing affordability conversation without putting too much pressure on individual property owners or entire neighborhoods.
Mayor, I'm going to give him mood since it's Nikki had one more.
Oh man, I saw Austin, and all right, you can go.
It's not one. What was your thoughts on the election earlier this week?
I think one thing that we will benefit from is the idea that we might now have a member of Congress who actually lives in the city of Nashville. I think that's a good overall outcome for us. But I think what you also saw is Nashvillians still, after a state redistricting process took away the ability for us to elect a member of Congress representing the entire city. I think you saw a ton of energy in that election that says that's still what we want. And I think we'll have, 3 opportunities next year to see if we can still deliver on that for Nashvillians. So a lot of good positive energy there. Austin? Oh, come on. Can I want to give a gift to Austin. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask about the downtown safety grant again.
Yep.
And I think that today you've maybe, in a sense, set the record straight a bit about what it does and doesn't do, the MOU that's before Metro Council now. But I'm curious if you want to weigh in on the perception that I think we're seeing from community members right now, the opposite being true. Do you have any thoughts on that?
One of the things we are responsible for is to try to offer not just to council members but to community members high quality information. And I will tell you, between our Department of Law, with our office and our communications team, we are trying to make sure that everybody understands what's actually happening. There are certainly, and I think this goes back to what Araceli was talking about, it is very easy in quickly changing environments where there may be surprises. We learned overnight when ICE actions first started in the spring how quickly that materialized. It's natural for people to experience fear, experience anxiety in those conditions. But I think here, this is a pretty clear case where our state government offered 4 large cities in Tennessee money specifically for downtown safety. The context is only downtown. I spent 8 years representing downtown. I and now Councilmember Coupin are ex officio members of the Nashville Downtown Partnerships Board of Directors. I think this is an important arrangement for overall downtown safety, and I hope people understand that amenities like lighting are safety improvements, that the addition and availability of public restrooms actually helps in our overall ecosystem of the entertainment district, as the Office of Nightlife and Metro Nashville Police Department and NDOT are all trying to keep this environment safe. And it's incredibly important for people not to amplify things that are not true about what the agreement is and isn't. All right. Thank you all. I don't know.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.